Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Nurahma Alvira Hamzah. My official number is A1M219017. So in here, I want to continue my presentation about a journal entitled Challenging in Teaching English for EFL Learners at Pesantren by Teacher Voice. First of all, let me say thank you for the opportunity has given to me. Because that in here I can continue and talk about the result and discussion from the journal. So the researchers' findings presented the challenges in teaching English faced by the teacher of English at one pesantren in Muba Regency. The data of this researcher were obtained from observation checklists and interview of the teacher of English. In a deep interview was done using both Indonesian and Sekayo language, such as local language, because the local language was easier to understand. Besides, we hide the participant names, like the first participant and the second participant. All the data were collected from observation and interviews with the participant involved in the study. After analyzing the data from observation and interviews, we found some challenges by the teacher of English in teaching English. So the challenges are like improving student motivation, improving student language competence, managing overcrowded class, managing limited time, and the last is facing lack of supporting facilities. So let's start it one by one. Okay, the first. The result of observation in speaking activities show that the student seems lazy and less active in speaking English. Besides on the data gained from the interviews, we found challenges confronted by the teacher when the student had less concentration or less focus in learning English. Consequently, the student having low motivation could be a problem in learning English. Challenges in terms of student motivation could be seen from learning activities, especially in teaching speaking, reading, and writing. Speaking, reading, and listening. So, in speaking activity, when the students were asked to speak in front of the class, the students were not too ready to speak, and most of the students looked scared and nervous in speaking. Okay, sorry for that. We continue. In addition, other students who were sitting talk to his friend about topics that had no relation to the current topics discussed, and most of students did not pay attention to his friend present in front of the class. In reading activities, most of the student, sorry, I continue. In reading activities, most of students look shy and hesitant in reading textbook. Based on observation data, when the teacher asks the student to give their opinion, read text, and answer teacher question, most of students were shy and confused. Furthermore, some of students sitting in the back row went to sleep, not being active and less giving attention when the teacher was explaining. And in listening activities, the result of observation showed that some students showed less interest in learning listening because there were no language laboratory and audio device provided. Moreover, the student did not learn listening and the teachers skipped this activity because there were no facility provided to support teaching listening activities. Therefore, the teacher were challenged to stimulate the student to be more active and involved in learning English. And the second, as you can see, uh, the data gen from the interview show that the teacher challenge in teaching English is when the student had less language competence. The student having less competence could be found in something activities, such as speaking activity, reading activity, and writing activity, which become challenges for teacher in teaching. The teacher were challenged to improve the language competence of students. The result of observation and interview show that teachers were challenges to improve students' speaking ability. In observation, we found most students had a lack of vocabulary and mispronounced the English words. In the speaking activity, we found that most students had difficult pronouncing this English word when they were asked to speak English. This issue commonly appeared when the teacher of English was teaching speaking. Another challenge related to the language competence has to improve writing skills. In observation, most students seem to lack ideas and had difficulties in organizing paragraph grammatically. And the next challenges related to the student language competence was that student had difficult understanding the text of reading comprehension. Based on the observation in the reading activity, most students did not understand the text they read. And the last challenge related to the student language competence was that student like understanding of the audio reading. Based on the observation in the listening activity, most students who sat in the back had difficulty listening to the audio recording well. And the third, as you can see, based on the data gained from observation and interview, we found that challenges faced by teacher of English in teaching English was managing the overcrowded class. The problem in managing in overcrowded class commonly occur in teaching English in large class. In addition, the challenges in managing an overcrowded class would be seen from observation in learning activities, especially in teaching, speaking, reading, and listening. The observation in speaking activity show that if the number of students was more than 30, most of the students rarely paid attention. In speaking activity, when the teacher spoke in front of the class, most students did not pay attention and talked about the topic with their friend. And in reading activities, some students did not get opportunity to read text. Based on observation, teaching English in a large class was a challenge for teacher because they had to manage time effectively in teaching reading, so the student could write text one by one. And in listening activities, teaching English in large class, especially teaching listening, teacher had challenges if there were many students in the class. The learning was not conductive. So based on the result of observation, students were always asking for repetition, so they were given the limited time of repetition. Based on the observation, most students were noisy during writing activities, and the student did cheat on the text. And the next, as you can see, teachers were challenged to manage time allocation. So, based on the observation and interview data, we found that challenges by a teacher in teaching was time allocation. In this Pesantren, English subject was taught only 2 meetings in a week. The time used to learn English was only 19 minutes in a meeting. Therefore, English is taught for a limited time. Consequently, English teachers were challenged to give the lesson effectively and uh, efficiently in limited time. Uh, in here, in speaking activities, the teacher would challenge you to measure the talking time and student talking time in accordance with the allocated time. In teacher speaking, teachers should give the lesson effectively and efficiently. The observation in speaking class showed that some of students had no chance to speak because the time provided was over. And I'm sorry, in writing activities, the teacher challenge in teaching writing where that the teacher had difficulty managing time in giving writing tasks to the student. The result of observation showed that when the writing activity was almost over, most students were only able to do some paragraph from 2 paragraphs. In observation, most students seem confused in writing essay, and then some of the students were cheating with their friend. And the lesson reading activity, the teacher was challenged to manage time allocated in accordance with material and students' reading ability. The challenge of managing limited time encouraged in listening activities. So, and the last, teachers were challenged to face lack of supporting facilities. So this is we can face it in many schools. And in here, based on the data gathered from observation and interview, we found that facilities in this pesantren become issues and challenges for the teacher of English in teaching. Most of the facilities that support the teaching learning process were unavailable, such as student and teacher books, language laboratory, projector, audio device, and other that can be used to learn. The data from interviews show that teachers had difficulties using facilities in teaching. In teaching English, there were no facility provided by the school to support teaching English. In fact, there was no laboratory to teach listening, and there was no audio device that be used in observation. When the teacher was teaching listening, the students were not interested in learning because the listening process was taught by using poor audio device. It's like using maybe a phone or speaker was teacher bringing in the class. And in teaching speaking, the school did not provide various media as learning sources. The schools only provide teacher and student handbooks as learning source. In observation of speaking class, the teacher taught speaking by asking the student to make a dialogue presented in front of the class. So, the last related to insufficient facilities occurred in teaching reading. The teachers only depend on the book. Meanwhile, the book contained difficult material. This made the student difficult to understand the text. And the result of its observation showed that teacher only used the handbook in teaching reading without using additional media because facilities provided by the school were inadequate. So let's move to the discussion. After we analyzed the data using thematic analysis, researcher found that teachers of English face several challenges. One of the challenges was the student lack of motivation. Dornier 2012 stated that motivation determines human behavior and gives the right to achieve. He lists motivational components that are uh, categorized in three main dimensions. So in here, the teacher will challenges to encourage the student to be more active and engaged in learning, speaking, reading, and listening. Further, the researcher also found that challenges in teaching English faced by teacher were when the student had a lack of language competence. Therefore, when the teacher explained material but student like mastering vocabulary, the teacher had not explained the meaning of vocabulary used by the teacher. Sorry. So, in line with it, the challenges faced by teacher of English was student lack of pronunciation mastery. In speaking, some of the students could not pronounce words in English correctly. And in writing activity, most students lacked ideas and had difficulty organizing paragraph grammatically in writing essays. Furthermore, in overcrowded classroom was also a challenges in teaching English faced by teacher. It made the teaching and learning process not effective. English teacher had to teach English in limited time and lack of repetition, which they had been teaching a meeting in week. The challenges faced by the teacher when they taught English limited was teacher difficult in managing the time for transferring information because time available for teaching English was only 90 minutes in one meeting. Another challenge faced by teachers in teaching English was the lack of facilities. In these researchers, they found that researchers and facility. Okay, sorry for that. So, the researchers found that the researchers and facility were insufficient. It made the teacher of English facing uh, the challenges in teaching. They didn't use electronic media to support the teaching learning process, therefore, the sources like textbooks were limited to be used. And even in MTS level, uh, did not use textbooks when learning English. MTS like a bird school. So, from the result above, uh, we can conclude that being a teacher was not easy because there are many challenges found in teaching. Many challenges are faced by teacher, both the challenge from the student and school as well. Besides, we also realize that government's role is important to improve teaching learning at school, such as giving the facility to support the teaching learning process. So I think that's all for my result and discussion today. So thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.